Alright, so, wow. Flesh and Blood is an older movie that I don't see talked about a lot, or at all, really. It's it's a very interesting movie, to say the least. Very, very interesting. It's a violent, brutal, nasty work of art. This horrific and despicably clever cinematic story that's it doesn't leave a lot to the imagination. I have just watched it for the first time, and I was impressed, and a little bit creeped out, if we're being totally honest. But I I believe that was the desired effect of the movie. If so, it is just brilliant. Despite or almost perhaps because of the movie's just unnecessary amount of violence, and it depicts in no uncertain terms some of the worst, most triggering and unsettling forms of violence you can possibly imagine. But as with the works of, say, George R. R. Martin in A Song of Ice and Fire, and other famous stories trying to depict a brutally accurate medieval world, I think the sort of senselessness and cruelty is a part of the point of the movie. It's not for someone particularly squeamish, and I think it's trying to portray honestly an evil medieval world. Was not all that comfortable with some of the scenes in the movie, but then again, I think I'd be mortified by someone who was comfortable with them. Um, it's achieved the desired effect, I think. Um, Nevertheless, allow me to explain why I think Flesh and Blood is both underrated and maybe deserves a remake or reimagining in the modern age. Um, Point number one, and perhaps the only point that matters in the end, is Rutger Hauer. The man, the myth, the legend. There's a reason he gets top billing in this movie, despite being the villain. He plays Martin, the leader of a betrayed band of mercenaries, a ragtag group of bloodthirsty, murderous psychos who, in order to exact revenge against their equally corrupt former employer, they endeavor to kidnap a princess and take over a castle and basically cause as much chaos as possible, almost indiscriminately. Um, they work under the guidance and sort of the protection of a kind of cowardly priest of Saint Martin, not to be confused with Martin the man. So you see, there's some sort of clever symbolism there, and there's quite a lot of religious iconography. This movie, while as raunchy and violent and disturbing as it is, it can also be quite fun. The fighting and battles are very cleverly directed, and the mercenaries, though absolutely the most wretched human beings you can imagine, they are also not very particularly politically savvy or very much interested in their own well being for that matter. They are also wickedly charismatic when they want to be, and their numbers include women, children, and gay men, which is something, at least. They might be horrible psychos, but they're diverse horrible psychos. Um, they remind me quite a lot, actually, of something like the Bloody Mummers or the Glanton Gang, and I have a pretty strong hunch they'd get along well with the Reavers from Firefly. That's the level of evil we're dealing with here, and also the level of craziness we're dealing with. And yet these people are still mortal. They still love and fear, and they hate, and they they are bound for their own destruction. We are following the villains here on their path of, it's a little bit a path of grief and a path of self-destruction. As I said, they are led by the wicked Martin, who is nevertheless very thoughtful and introspective and persuasive, unlike the ruffians he leads. And I do believe he is quite mad. He is such a narcissist that he believes that the very princess they have captured and so horribly abused is falling in love with him. This and other beliefs of the character sort of turn into like almost delusions by the end of the movie. And I think Rutger Hauer, he portrays this character just incredibly. I mean, what can I say? Rutger Hauer does evil really well, and I'm really sorry that he's gone, because every time I watch Blade Runner or even something like Flesh and Blood, I think about how many more movies and shows he could have done. It's like we lost a great treasure, uh, and it leaves me almost speechless to think about the tragedy that we no longer have Rutger Hauer with us. So yeah, there's that. Also, like Jennifer Jason Leigh does a respectable job in the role of the princess, and I think brings a bit of nuance to the role actually, because I don't think the princess is necessarily a good person starting out. Like I'm inclined to say she's almost a witch, I think. Though what happens to her is I would not wish upon anyone, of course. But I think it makes things a little bit more nuanced and interesting, to say the least. You feeling so sorry for this character, even as she's not quite the most the most likable character to begin with. But yeah, and meanwhile we have a very intelligent prince character who's desperate to get his bride to be back, and we have his evil father and a very clever general who is willing to do whatever it takes to bring down these evil bastards once and for all. Um, but even in the end of this crazy, wicked, evil movie, in the very end, there's something bittersweet about the ending. We see firsthand how the soldiers in the army are really no better than Martin's band of rogues, and it's kind of sobering to think about. It's almost like a Heart of Darkness story. This backdrop of horror, almost horror at the evil of humankind itself, which is a little bit refreshing when you're able to think about what can be written off as just a simple action movie in such philosophical terms. I think the movie could be a bit more tasteful. Honestly, I think it could do with being a lot more tasteful, actually. And besides, some of that stuff is better off implied anyway, like left for the imagination, right, to gnaw at the back of the mind. Um, and honestly, I think that of all the great, like, amazing masterpiece movies that have been remade for no reason, a movie like this, which is all right, like pretty good and has very interesting premise, um, I think it could do really well with being remade, perhaps by a bit more of a tactful writer and director. Could be good. So yeah, that's Flesh and Blood. Um, so yeah, bye.